You know when you connect to a public Wi-Fi network and your computer asks if you trust this network? The correct answer should be absolutely not. Airports, hotels, and coffee shops are convenient places to find Wi-Fi, but they're also the easiest place for your data to get watched, intercepted, or quietly scraped. NordVPN helps fix that by encrypting your internet traffic so what you're doing online isn't just floating around the network. With over 9,000 VPN servers covering more than 188 locations, it's built to stay fast, so you're not stuck choosing between security and a usable connection. Plus, it comes with features that actually matter to your day-to-day life, including threat protection to block malicious sites and trackers, and a built-in kill switch that helps prevent accidental leaks should your VPN connection drop. If you want to stop risking your data on public Wi-Fi, you can save up to 77% on a 2-year subscription, plus score 4 extra months and a free Amazon gift card just by going to nordvpn.com/9to5off and signing up for a 2-year subscription. That's nordvpn.com/9to5off to claim this offer. Welcome to the Sideload, where we're replacing the gold standard with 4GB sticks of DDR3 RAM. What can I say? It's worth more. I'm your host, Will Sattelberg. On today's show, I am thrilled to welcome Rich Woods to the program to talk through a few things. Rich and I start the show with a debate on the new $599 MacBook Neo and whether it's actually a good product even at that price point. Then we talk about the health of Windows as a platform and whether Google has a chance to make a splash with Android for desktops. It's all coming up right now. I am so excited to welcome my friend Rich Woods to the show. He is the content director at XDA Developers, MakeUseOf, and HowToGeek, which keeps him extremely busy. And so I am so excited he made time to come on my silly little podcast and talk about computers. It's what Rich, that is your bread and butter, I would say. Is that fair?
That is fair. Thanks for having me, and I always love to talk about computers.
You are one of the we've been to plenty of events together, but because I'm so embedded in the mobile world, there are lots of like Windows or Microsoft events, desktop events, laptop events that you go to that I'm not involved with at all, not even like on an email list. But we've both been to Snapdragon Summit together that Qualcomm throws. And you are like the person, like when they talk about ARM chips for laptops, like I see your face light up in a way that I don't see anybody else's light up. So I'm really excited to have you on to talk about this stuff. You care more about this stuff than I think anybody else does in the industry.
I'll take that compliment. I appreciate that.
As I told you in the pre-show, I wanted to have you on because you were the biggest MacBook Neo skeptic in my social media feeds, I would say. And the MacBook Neo was a product that when they announced it, I was like, I had like the exact opposite reaction of you, which is that I see this as like a game-changing launch. So I want to start with your take though. What do you make of the MacBook Neo?
You know, I appreciate that you called me a skeptic. We used the word hater earlier.
Truly, last second change. The hater was the word in my head, and I changed it to skeptic at the last second.
Skeptic it's more accurate.
It is more accurate, which is why I changed it.
I wrote an article called "Please Don't Pre-Order the MacBook Neo" because it's just starting with the A18 Pro. That's powering this thing. This thing has never been used in a laptop before. Like we're seeing test results now. We're seeing benchmark scores and all that stuff. People are comparing it to an M1, right?
Yeah.
That's not great. The M1 was released in 2020.
Yeah.
Okay. You're buying a laptop for $600. We live in a little bit of a bubble because we use computers for certain things.
Right.
When we as reviewers look outside of that bubble, I think we sort of have a distorted view of what the average person needs from it, because it's what the average person actually needs from a laptop is they don't want to spend $600 on a laptop. They buy tech because it's a necessity and they want to spend as little as possible, but also they wanted to do everything they needed to do.
Right.
And this doesn't really do that because it could be great for you 95% of the time. When it doesn't work and someone says to you, well, you should have bought a better product, that's when you have a real pain point. Apple's never been in this market before.
Right.
They've never made actual mid-range products with a mid-range product. Even the iPhone SE models, they tend to have the premium chipsets inside them, right? And then compromise on features. This does the opposite. This has a nice display, an aluminum build, same weight as a MacBook Air, but it's compromising on performance. And the reason I said not to pre-order it in the beginning wasn't just because this is an untested chipset that no one has used. I read the press release. I've read a lot of press releases, and these are the kinds of, it just set off alarm bells in my head.
What were the alarm bells?
Well, okay, sorry.
No, you're fine.
It's just that when you say things like it's really great for streaming content and web browsing, those are the things that you say when it's not good at anything else. And I'll call out Qualcomm in this case because they've done it a lot. Because they've released a lot of bad chips. I'm actually using one right now. I'm using a Snapdragon 7C. Do you remember that?
Oh my God, yeah,
and it was awful.
How old is that?
Yeah, I'm using they released a little dev kit. Sorry to go off topic, but
no, that is the point of this show. Absolutely go off topic.
It was like $220 and it was released less than 5 years ago, but it's terrible. I'm trying to install Windows 11 on it right now.
What was that in? Why I can't even, was that in like Chromebooks, right?
It was in Chromebooks and some low end Windows PCs.
Man, I think I reviewed at Android Police. I think I reviewed a Chromebook that maybe was running on this chip because like
it was okay on
sticking
Chromebooks.
In my brain. Yeah. Yeah, it was a perfectly fine Chromebook, except I think it was like $900. Which, no.
Sometimes they are overpriced too.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, when you say things like that, you're setting yourself up to tell people when they complain about this product later, you're setting themselves up. You're setting yourself up for people to complain that I bought a computer. I thought it could do everything I'm going to need it to do. They mentioned the like apps that you can use. The first one they listed was, I believe it was Messages. It's like,
fair.
You know,
I mean, okay. Let me defend that. Oh my God, this is going to make me sound like such an Apple shill. So I hope people go back and listen to me complain about iOS on previous podcasts or whatever. And I don't even like Mac OS. I have a MacBook that I use as like my travel MacBook, or my travel laptop. And like the amount of times Mac OS gets in the way of what I'm trying to do. Anyway, the defense I would give to Messages is that I think that is specifically trying in the press release, which I know is nobody but us is reading that. But I think the reason that they're calling that out is to try to get iPhone owners who have a Chromebook or a low end Windows machine to be like, oh, I can spend $600. My next laptop can be the $600 MacBook, and I can text from it because I have an iPhone. That would be my guess.
A good point. That is a big value proposition of MacBooks. It's the only thing that I miss using Windows is
the ecosystem.
Being able to text people.
Yeah.
No, that's fair. That's fair. They talked a little bit about photo editing too.
Yeah.
And I was talking to somebody who's reviewing one, and he's like, I'm not sure what they meant when they said it was good for photo editing. I'm like, they 100% meant the Photos app in Mac OS, the basic photo edits. Look, people buy a laptop. They want it to last 3 to 5 years. Probably closer to 3 when it comes to MacBooks because Apple users just spend more money. But probably closer to 5 years if you're buying a $600 laptop.
Right. And
life changes a lot in 5 years. There will be things that you want to use this thing for that it really just can't do. And you might be fine with that. It sounds, for most of the use cases, it sounds like you'd be better off with an iPad. And look, I don't like Macs.
Yeah.
I don't use Mac OS much. I have a MacBook Air that I can use if I need it for something, but I do recommend Macs to people sometimes. And it does and I don't argue with how good they tend to be, right?
Yeah.
The Mac Mini I recommend to people all the time because there is nothing close to it in the Windows
in that
world.
price range. For $500
in
for
that
what
price
you
range.
get is actually crazy.
Yeah, it crushes everything else.
Yeah.
But when people talk about the MacBook Neo like it's just RIP Windows, it's like not really. You know who made a really good point to me though was on Twitter was Steven Sinofsky. I think we're like friends now. We might be. I don't know. Don't tell him. But he was the guy that was in charge of Windows 8.
Yeah.
And it's actually kind of sad that that's his legacy that everyone
yeah.
remembers him for. But he did a lot of cool stuff on Office too, whatever. But he made a really good point that it's not so much that there are no better Windows laptops, because there are. You can find them, especially if you look under deals, because, the price point is the price point.
Yeah.
The problem is finding them. Someone walks into a Best Buy and there are, 10 laptops that are $600 to $700, and you have to find the one that's good, or you can just buy a MacBook Neo.
Right. So let me give you my perspective, and maybe we can see how we square these two, right? So I agree with you on a lot of counts. I think the A18 as a desktop chipset, as a not a mobile chipset, is untested, right? I mean, like we now have the first run of MacBook Neo reviews, but like largely speaking, this is like a first. I mean, this is a first for Apple. Like, let's not beat around the bush. The M1, comparison, it's tricky because when I think about people using an M1 chip or an M1 laptop with 8 gigabytes of RAM in it, I think about my mom who I got a MacBook Pro in 2011. I upgraded. You say Apple users upgrade often. I upgraded that laptop 2 years later when I went to college, right? I got a MacBook Air when I went to college. My mom took that MacBook Pro and she used it until COVID. Like that, it finally, like, it tried to die in 2018 and she saved it. Like, it was, I mean, this thing had a disk drive. That is how old this MacBook Pro was. And so in 2020, when they launched the M1, I was like, they had fixed the keyboard, right? And they had done all this stuff. And reviews came out and they were good. And I was like, okay, like, for what you need, I think this is a good laptop for you. I mean, it's it's coming up on 5 years old. And like, she has not complained to me about this thing. I will say, like, she is not, Walmart was selling this thing until basically the Neo's announcement. They might still be selling it. I'm not sure, but like, they're obviously going to push the Neo now. I do think there is space for something like this. Partially because, there were a million leaks about this thing, right? Like, we kind of knew this thing was coming. We knew it was going to be like colorful. We knew it was going to run on an A series chip, and we knew it was going to have probably 8 gigabytes of RAM, and that all came true. I was expecting all of that to be $800. I think is part of why when they were like it's $600, I'm like, well, that is if this thing is like any good at all, it is difficult to say no to. It is difficult to ignore, I would say, right? You have to, at least if you are in that mid-range price bracket, you are at least going to have to put it on a list of things to consider.
Yes.
Which is maybe a little bit unfair, right? Like, for me to be impressed that they beat my own expectation, but that is like how I came into it. That I just didn't see this coming. But it's part of this larger idea that I've had that, like, and I have this might age like milk because we are in the RAM apocalypse and I have no idea what laptop prices are going to look like in a year, in 6 months. Rich, I built the computer I'm talking to you through right now. I built this computer at the beginning of October of last year. I had no idea that I was building the last computer you could ever build. Like, oh my God, I was between buying 32 and 64 gigabytes of RAM, and I was finally like, you know what? Because I was going to upgrade later, and I was like, you know what? It's like, I'm already spending, I'm not going to say the dollar amount. I'm already spending a lot of money. What's $50 or $60 more to double my RAM now? Thank God. The 64 gigabytes of RAM I bought was like it was like $190. And but the last time the RAM you can't buy, the storage I bought went from like 160 to 400. Like,
yeah,
it is shipped and sold by Amazon, by the way. That's not like a markup. That is Amazon shipping and selling. But so all this said, besides that tangent, The reason I'm like, I've been looking at like the MacBook line since they upgraded the starting configuration of RAM to 16 gigabytes. It's like, I have a hard time not seeing that as like weirdly the best value in laptops, because they're always discounted everywhere but Apple's own stores. You routinely can get the let's ignore the new M5 MacBook Air. You can get the M4 MacBook Air was constantly like $100 to $150 off, sometimes even $200 off. You could get it for like $800 with 256 gigabytes of storage is not a lot, but 16 gigabytes of RAM, a good processor, a good, like everything, all the basics are there. I think I see the MacBook Neo as an extension of that, of like cutting out, to me, just like cutting right to the bone on the power level, but keeping it just above minimum, which I agree with you, might age like milk. That is the biggest concern with the Neo, is that I think it's enough for today. Is it enough for 2028, right?
Right. That's the question. The Mac, when we talk about the M1, yeah, it's still good today, but it is 6 years old. And so it's probably not going to be powerful enough if you were buying a brand new one today.
Right.
And same thing about the MacBook Air. The MacBook Air is so good.
It's great. It's a great laptop.
So when we in our tech reviewer bubble talk about how this isn't for us, it's for the every person. It's like, no, the MacBook Air was already for every person.
Yeah.
That thing, it'll take whatever you throw at it. However your life changes over the next 5 years, it's going to handle it.
I mean, like I said, my workflow involves a decent amount of video editing these days. And like, I was doing video video editing at CES in a hotel room, and like, it's slower than this desktop, sure, but it did it. Like it wasn't like significantly, it was about the speed of my last computer, which had a beefier processor and a dedicated GPU and a fan, a proper fan. It was a gaming laptop, but it was the MacBook Air was about the same amount of time to process video, which is
great,
impressive.
And that was the Apple philosophy. Steve Jobs famously walked in and said, "Which one do I tell my friends to buy?" And he chopped down the product line, and you have a Pro and you have the mainstream one that's for everybody, and that's it, because it is for everybody. It's like, I'll always bring up Windows Phone at some point. Do you remember the Windows Phone days? They had,
of course,
the best days. But so there were no apps though, right? And so
that was the problem. So
Microsoft went out and they realized that, at least at that time in history, most people just didn't use apps. People had, like, the vast majority of people did not have a lot of apps installed on their phone. And if they did, they didn't really use them. So it's like, if on average people use 3 apps on their phone, in theory, you can go out and you could get a list of the most downloaded apps, and you go out and you advocate to those developers to get those apps on your platform. And then you get them, and you get the top 50 or the top 100. And you realize at some point, though, that the 3 apps that people run are like Facebook, Twitter, and then the third one is like your local supermarket.
Right.
And it's like, so that person still had a bad experience. It's like, everybody does have a somewhat unique use case, especially over the span of 5 years.
Yeah.
They're going to try to do something with it that it's really not meant to be used for. And I've covered a lot of laptops in this price range, and I've seen a lot of people complain about their computer or their phone and say like, "Hey, it really sucks that my computer can't do this thing."
Right.
And then try tweeting that, and someone's going to come back. You're like, "Well, you're an idiot because you bought this product that's only meant to be done with it." It's like, no, man. People buy a computer. They want a computer. It's supposed to do everything. And the MacBook Air is already that. Middle school students is probably fine. And it's probably like, it's never going to be a terrible product to buy either, right? It's still good. It's 2.7 pounds. It's, got a solid display. Like you said, they fixed the keyboard a few years ago, but that keyboard, people should remember that, the butterfly keyboard, because they ran with that for like 5 years.
I mean, it's like, It was just that they needed to ditch Johnny Ive. Like that dude was. I'm sorry. Look, I'm not. Who am I to dunk on Johnny Ive's legacy? Right? Like
Sure.
he that man owned the 2000s in terms
You're
of
a podcaster.
aesthetic.
It's your job.
I am to quote a friend of mine, a barking dog on the internet. But
That's what we do.
Exactly. But once Jobs was gone, I mean, there was just nobody to rein him in, and they handed him power. And God, I have memories of going to the video editing labs at my college, and they had, the summer before I started there, or maybe, they like the 2013 MacBook, or not MacBook, the Mac Pro, the garbage can one. They'd updated that entire lab to the Mac Pro garbage can computer, and it wasn't good. It was so bad. I would take projects home because I had built a by the time I'm really spending a lot of time in there, it was like 2015, 2016 as I'm getting further into college. And I had a gaming computer, like a Windows gaming computer that I had built, the first computer I had built in my apartment. And I would just take projects home because it was like easier to chew through those files on my gaming laptop than it was the 2-year-old Mac Pro that they had spent like $3,000 on because it was, the design was quote unquote incredible and perfect. And then you have the butterfly keyboard, and I mean that entire MacBook was like maybe a good idea a decade too early, I guess is how I would put it. Just like swings and misses. I'm sure I'm missing other products that he helped launch that I can't think of that were iffy. That mid 2010s Apple, looking back, is such a weirdly lost company. That
2010s.
Yeah. It's like
until Apple Silicon.
Apple Silicon. Yeah. Go ahead.
When they were doing butterfly keyboard, that wasn't just a swing and a miss. That felt like they were spitting in the faces of Mac users because people they did it for like 5 years. They swung, they missed, and they kept going. They kept putting it on new products, and
they kept saying they fixed it.
Yeah, they did, didn't they? But they just kept putting it out there, though.
They kept putting out so many bad. I mean, the touch bar was a bad idea. It was. I remember thinking that thing looked so cool because, again, I went to school for video production, and I was like, man, I would love that thing to scroll through my Premiere timeline, and it's like, but that's all you would do with it. Like that's the only and at that point you might as well just get like I have like an editing. I don't know if they made these at the time, but I have like this editing tool that like I can scroll through my timeline with this knob, right? Like that's all I need. And so I don't know. I mean, God, it's so Apple should be so thankful they had the iPhone because they're part of the reason I mentioned my mom had that laptop, that MacBook for almost a decade. Part of it was because I kept being like, you can't buy a MacBook right now. You just can't buy a MacBook right now. They're all bad. And they did turn that around. At this point, I really would probably recommend a MacBook, any of the MacBooks, including probably the Neo to anybody considering it.
I'd recommend an Air and a Mini.
I know. Yeah. Well, okay. Let me give you this because you brought this up earlier.
For that matter. Yeah.
The pros are good. The thing I would say about the MacBook Neo, if I can turn the performance argument on you, is that you mentioned the iPad, that people might, looking at the MacBook Neo, might be better off with an iPad. But the MacBook Neo, if you were to buy the entry-level iPad, full price, I have to do full price for these comparisons, at 256 gigabytes, you have to match the storage, with the keyboard folio, you're looking at $698 on Apple's website. You can get, I would argue, a better experience from the MacBook Neo for $100 less. Or you get the $700 model. You have Touch ID. You have an additional 256 gigabytes of storage.
This is the
yes, you were limited.
About.
Go ahead. Here, go. Well, I also that's the 329 iPad, right?
Yeah.
I also have one, and I have the most recent one, and it's perfectly fine. But I do think that like for somebody going off to college, or like you said like middle school, but like any amount of schooling that does not involve anything creative.
Right. But that's the thing. If you're going off to college, right? I said earlier, it's good for middle school students. If you're going off to college, you should buy a MacBook Air. Spend the extra couple $100, please. If you're listening, I'm begging you because you are a kid and you might change your major in a year.
That's true. I just like, to me, it's like, you have to remember, if we're talking about students, you drop the prices $100.
Yes.
I don't like, if you're a college student, let's say you're going to community college, you come from a low income family. If you only have $500 to spend, I do think I just don't know what you would get that would like completely blow the MacBook Neo out of the water. You posted, and you talked about it earlier, like Windows laptops are frequently on sale on Best Buy, and it is tricky to, as I said, it's tricky to compare these things when this $900 laptop from Lenovo is always on sale for $700 or something, right? Like, how do you do you judge it by the $900 MSRP? Do you judge it by the fact that Best Buy, 3 out of 4 weeks a month has it at $700? Like, it's difficult. It's difficult to make that comparison, which I run into all the time on talking about Pixels, right? Like, they're always on sale. How do you talk about the price?
Well, that's why I mentioned what Steven Sinofsky said about how it's tough to find the good Windows laptop in that Best Buy store, because we as media would judge it by the MSRP, but when we're talking to someone who's walking into Best Buy and buying a laptop, they're looking at the price tag of what's there. Yeah. So like there is always a Windows laptop, because it's probably the most common answer I get when people ask me what laptop they should buy, and I say, well, how much are you willing to spend? The most common answer is $500-$600.
Right. Yes. Right? I run into this all the time too. Yeah.
So the first thing I do is I look at when is the next Amazon Prime Day, because there's one every 2 months, and I say, okay, we're going to look at deals on this day, and that's how you're going to get the best value.
Right.
If you're spending $500-$600 on a laptop, why would you do it on not a shopping holiday? Because there's a shopping holiday every 2 months now.
I mean, it just depends on if you need the laptop tomorrow, I suppose. I guess that's maybe what I would argue, is that this is, much like my feelings on like the Pixel 10a. It's like, yeah, you might be able to find a better deal, but if everything is full priced, this is probably the best phone you can get for your $500.
Probably.
Like, that was kind of my conclusion on the Pixel 10a, which is that, like, look, if you find a Pixel 9, 9a, or 10 for cheaper than the 10a, go for it. But if you don't, this is a perfectly fine way to spend your money. That's sort of where I'm at with the MacBook Neo, which is that it is nailing all the basics. Like, I do think it is important that it has a good screen, a good touchpad, good speakers. That's huge. The speakers thing is huge.
Yes.
A good display, a good webcam, another big thing in my opinion, because you are not getting a webcam that good on a Windows laptop at $600. Probably not at $900. The MacBook
some brands are doing well. Yeah. I mean, after 2020, when people started working from home, that became a priority across the board.
It's just a shame it took a pandemic to get manufacturers there.
Yeah. It also really highlights how long the pipeline is for making laptops, because a lot of these didn't show up till 2022.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's just, to me, I guess where I land on the MacBook Neo is that I do think for a lot of people it will be like a really good first MacBook in a way, and like I think it's like a genius. Like you mentioned at the top of the show, you don't like people being like, oh, Windows is dead. I don't think Windows is dead from this. But my prediction, my gut check when they launched this was like, if you told me, if we fast forwarded 12 or 18 months and you told me that like Windows market share has taken a 10% dip, I would believe that. I could see that.
Yeah. That's a big dip.
It's a big dip, but it's not, but like it's the ecosystem is so big. Yeah. We talked about messages. I really do think that, we haven't, this thing's only been on the market for a week or two. The holidays are going to be huge for this thing. I really think that. And Ramageddon could could screw everything up on this. It is the looming
I wonder
specter.
how much I wonder how much Apple's insulated from that.
I have no idea. I truly, because like we're starting to see prices rise. I bought a I don't know how much you follow the emulation scene, but I bought an AYN Thor, which is a dual screen emulation device. I don't know if you remember the LG Wing, but it uses the square panels for its second screen from the LG Wing, like unused LG Wing panels. It's awesome. I love this thing. They've already had to raise their prices on the next shipment because, from like, depending on the model, you get $20 to $40 because the RAM is expensive and they're like a relatively small, again, they're not Apple, and we're seeing that even on larger brands as well. I have no idea what the future is for this computer, nor do I know, maybe next year they give it 16 gigabytes of RAM and they raise the price by $50, but it's an all around better computer. Like, I don't know, but I do think, concerns aside, the future is, I think this thing is going to sell like millions. Like, really do.
They will. Yeah. I don't think anything I've said is going to affect sales of it, and any of those facts. I'm more concerned about how well it ages if people are satisfied with the product in 2 years. Right.
We have no way of knowing. We could get 2 years down the road and I call you back on the show and I'm like, Rich, I told you so. People, MacBook Neo owners are perfectly happy. Or, I call you back on the show and I'm like, Rich, let me have it. And you're like, I told you so.
And that's why I'm a skeptic though, because I can tell you with certainty that if you buy a MacBook Air, if you're going to college, or if you buy a MacBook Air in 3 years, you'll be very satisfied with having made that purchase. Right. Yeah. There's no denying that. Totally. It's tested. We know it's going to take everything you throw at it. Yeah.
The extra, if you have the money, I fully agree that the extra cash is going to, especially if you can find like an M4 Air on sale right now as they're like moving to the M5, like you should do that. But
also look, refurbs exist too, right?
Yeah. Fine. Yeah. It's well, and that's one of those things, with the industry in the state that it is, like you have to take the deal that you can find. And I do think that like the people who are going to get the best computer out there are the ones who are going to spend like 2 weeks shopping for it and like trying to like making a spreadsheet out of all of their options and figuring out which is best for them. But my kind of conclusion on the MacBook Neo is just that like it was one of those things where my expectations were so set on like Apple would never launch a $600 laptop, and they essentially just announced the one I thought would be $800. Like I really did. It's like a weird era for them. And also I've already seen like 5 ads for this thing. And that price point is like the big reveal at the end. They can tell that like, even if you're right, this thing, it doesn't matter. This thing is still going to move people to go and buy it. By the way, let's talk about that citrus color for a moment. Okay. I have to preface this by saying my fiance's favorite color is yellow and she wants the citrus one so bad. Okay. Like, if they came out with a MacBook Air in citrus, I would probably switch to Mac OS. I love that color so much. Dude, I walked into a store. I'm like, this is beautiful. You can see I have the yellow iPad. You have the yellow iPad. That's exactly what my fiance has. Yeah. It's man, I get why smaller brands don't do, or even like medium-sized brands don't do it. But when you're a company the size of Apple, why are you not just making like all of your products in 10 colors? You have the scale for it. You can eat the cost. I just don't get it. Pro users don't like colors, Will. Everybody knows that. If you want a good iPhone, it's either gray, silver, orange. They got the orange in there. And you know what? Like, you were at CES, right? Or did you not go this year? I can't remember. I went. Okay, awesome. I don't know what your experience was, but I walking around the show floor, I saw a million orange iPhone Pros. Like they were everywhere. Oh, yeah. And it helps that they're like a red sports car. You can see them. But people love that. It's like, guys, like people do like bold colors. Not everybody. Have your blacks, have your whites, but like have an orange, have a red, have a like deep blue or whatever, right? Like,
but why would you assume that it's just for people that are paying less?
Well,
right. They've done
that's
on the
my problem,
non-pro iPhones. And so it's like, I walked into an Apple store. I saw the Citrus MacBook Neo. I'm like, that is beautiful. I really hope they make an iPhone 18 Pro in this color. And then 2 seconds later, I'm like, wait, no, of course they won't, because this is a low end color. And so it will not be a premium color. And that's just how it is.
Yeah. Do not get me started on colors, because that will be the rest of the episode. It's just like, well, and also, okay, one more thought and then I want to talk about Windows. But like, to that point, Best Buy, man, like Apple, those colors are just going to stand out among the rest of the like Windows laptops in that price range, because the rest of the Windows laptops in that price range are black or silver. Like, but that's it. That's
the thing that Apple has going for it also, is that they can get Best Buy to put it in a store. Yeah. Because when you like, if you talk to laptop makers about the products, honestly, all of their products, but especially in that price range, a lot of their decisions are driven by what Best Buy sort of tells them to do. Yeah. Because you need to get your laptop on that floor in Best Buy, because if it's not there, you're just not going to sell any. So there are branding decisions that I don't even know if I'm allowed to talk about, but there are branding decisions that are made because, like there are companies that have laptop brands globally, and then it's called something else in the United States,
right?
Because Best Buy owns the brand,
right? Okay, interesting. That is very, because obviously my background is more on the mobile side. That is not too far off from like how carriers talk to OEMs. Yeah, that's not dissimilar.
These are the people that are going to get your products in people's hands.
Yeah. Well, and that's why, I mean, the carrier, I do blame the carriers for why the smartphone market in the United States or in North America in general is so much less competitive compared to Europe or China. Like, it is 100% because the carriers were able to get their foot in the door and they pushed what they wanted to push. And largely speaking, that was, there was obviously demand for iPhones, but it's, those carriers allowed iMessage to become the dominant like way to communicate in the United States, and in a way that it wasn't in the rest of the world.
Also, RCS is terrible.
Well, don't disagree with you.
I lost iMessage for a month.
It's fine.
I lost iMessage for a month.
Yeah.
And it was a nightmare because when RCS goes down, or at least what happened for me, regular text messages switch to SMS, of course. But for any group chat that I'm in with my friends, I just couldn't communicate with them anymore.
Okay.
And Apple ended up giving me a new iPhone because I switched carriers twice.
Yeah.
I could prove that if I switched my SIM into an Android phone, RCS worked. So it was the device.
Interesting.
Yeah. No one knows how, because that's the other problem with RCS. Because with iMessage, if you have a problem, you could call Apple. They're responsible for iMessage. Right. If you have a problem with RCS, no one knows. No one knows. Your carrier will tell you to talk to the person who makes your phone. The person who makes your phone tells you to talk to your carrier, and no one knows how it's run.
Yeah.
It was an extremely frustrating month. I'm on Visible now, by the way.
Visible? My fiance's on Visible. She likes it quite a bit.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's a good network. Okay, I want to talk about Windows for the last 20-ish minutes we have. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn when I say there's a lot of frustration towards Windows right now on the internet. Am I wrong?
Yeah, and by the way, those people are not wrong either.
Oh, okay. Well, talk me through your opinion on the state of Windows right now, Windows 11.
Well, first of all, regardless of, a lot of people hate AI, right? Or at least the way that companies are doing it. We've seen this in our careers many times where there's a new technology and there is a giant push that's financially backed from all companies that throwing this technology, like it happened with 5G, right?
Yeah.
Everything was 5G, 5G, 5G. You need to buy a 5G phone. It's like, but no one cares, right? It's things that no one cares about that you're being told to care about. So you're just seeing the same thing with AI. This is the biggest rollout of a technology that doesn't work in history. And by the way, there's plenty of great applications for AI, but
no, I'm on your side.
Yeah.
I agree with. My biggest frustration about AI is being told to accept that this technology just fundamentally is imperfect, and I'm like, that goes against like every rule of every application I've ever used, which is that when you find something wrong, you report it as a bug and they fix it. Like I've never used an application before where I'm like, this is giving me bad outcomes, and the company making it is like, it's operating as intended. Like, what?
Or just like, it'll get better. But like, we knew it was broken when we shipped it, and we want you to use it. We stuffed it inside this thing you already used that works.
My favorite is like, well, you're, and this is more from like AI people like pushing AI, right? But like, it's like, well, you're probably on the free tier. It's like, okay, even if I am, regardless, you're telling me that to fix the application that's not working, I have to give the company money? Like that's your solution.
It's also a lot of money, by the way.
It's a lot of money. $20 a month for the mid-tier plan is a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like when we started doing software subscriptions and we looked at like Office 365 and it was $10 a month or $100 a year.
Yeah.
Like that was, a reasonable price to pay for expensive software. And now you're seeing this and especially when they started doing it and it's like, there's basically no value proposition to this, but there's a pro tier for $20 a month. I'm
going to get people yelling at us, but like, it's just, to me, I'm not saying that the paid models aren't better. I'm just saying that it is a fundamentally weird thing for a company to be like, if you want the software to like not get as many things wrong, you have to pay us. That's all.
I can tell you though that there are a lot of great models. There's a lot of great uses for AI.
I see but it's, to me, it's just like, it's not a revolution. It's an evolution. And I'm frustrated by the revolution talk.
But here's the thing, though. This is what people won't yell at you about. One thing that's almost universally agreed upon is that one of those good things is not Copilot.
Dude, the Copilot ads I had to sit through during the football season, I just like, it was driving me nuts because I'm like, I'm watching this and I'm like, this thing doesn't do any of that. Like it was the Christmas one specifically. I'm like, no, you tried to do any of this. And this is like, and then like The Verge did that exact thing. And The Verge's outcome was like, it did like two of them. and like one of them was kind of wrong. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Tell me about Copilot. I've not used Copilot. So I don't have a Windows 11 Copilot PC.
If you go like, they're just Windows is a thing where people want to use it to get to the thing that they want to do, right? Like any operating system. The operating system exists between, it's a gateway between the user and the app, really.
Yeah.
They don't want Copilot shoved in their face. They don't want ads shoved in their face. There are things that Microsoft took away in Windows 11, like moving the taskbar. Right. And whenever I talk to people at Microsoft, I yell at them about this because they're doing things like every time they announce a new feature, it's Copilot related.
Right.
But they took away the ability to move the taskbar with Windows 11. And like you can move it to the left side of your screen, the right, the top. And I've talked to people high up in Windows and they're like, well, how often do you move your taskbar? I'm like, oh, I don't. But what you don't understand is that no matter how few people do this, you pissed people off that wanted that small level of customization, and you took it away for no reason.
Right. It's not so much that people that I do it. It's that I mean, like, man, I don't remember the last time I moved. Obviously, I can't do it on this computer, but I don't remember the last time I moved my taskbar. I definitely, when I was a kid and I had my first couple laptops, I definitely, or like my parents' computer, like I remember moving the taskbar around because I was that nerdy kid who was into technology and computers, which is how you end up here. But like I would do that stuff just to like give the computer like a different
feeling. Like, I don't know. Like, why not? Like, and to
I
your
have to
point,
tell you something though.
Why take it away? Yeah, go ahead.
This conversation is going to be dated by the time this conversation this comes out. They are allowing people to move the taskbar. So that's the other thing. You might have seen reports, I don't know, a month or two ago that they're pulling back on pushing AI in Windows.
Yes.
Because here's what I can tell you, just based on my own like they've heard the feedback, they've heard the negative sentiment, they've heard the word microslop.
Yeah,
it's great hearing someone high up in Windows say that word out loud, but they've heard the word microslop, and they're not living under a rock where all this negative sentiment is out there. People are switching to Linux. I don't know if it'll ever be mainstream, but people are switching to Linux. You know, gamers. Apple does have
it's gamers. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's, and I want to get your opinion on this, but to me, I'm like, man, Microsoft, this is like the worst time for you to be unpopular because you have like Valve has done the work to get Steam running like reliably, not just Steam, but like many games running really reliably on Linux. Like, I mean, it's to the point where like I was talking about my AYN Thor, which runs Android, right? And like Android has a bunch of like Windows like emulate, like really good. Like I was playing Disco Elysium on that thing. It's running Android, and I was emulating Disco Elysium on it. You're not going to do Cyberpunk, but like any 2D or like low end 3D game, you can get running on just Android now. And so Microsoft has to keep in mind that like suddenly like gamers, you know, if you are primarily using your computer for gaming, like it is very easy to jump over to Linux at this point.
But all of this stuff, like why does this exist? Why does a Steam Deck exist? It exists because like Microsoft just announced Project Helix, its next gen Xbox, and it's going to be able to run PC games. They could have done this with the Xbox One, right? Yeah. But they didn't. Gaming handhelds, they could have been on top of that. They could have done a full screen Xbox experience on gaming handhelds. They didn't. Gaming handhelds for Windows were awful. Just awful.
They're still not great compared to the competition. I would like just in terms of like battery life or usability. Like you're still.
I do like the Xbox ROG.
I've heard it's good. I've heard that that's kind of the first one I heard of people not being like, just wait for a Linux one or wait for a SteamOS version, which is Linux.
You sit there and Microsoft and Intel too. They sit there and they say like, we have these strengths that no one can take from us.
Yeah.
And so like you get stagnant and someone figures out how to do it elsewhere. And now you can game on Linux pretty reliably and run pretty much anything because you sat there and did nothing. Right. So that's how it works. So yeah, they are pulling back on some of the AI pushes.
Yeah.
You know, Microsoft does this. It's always been a thing for them where like every other version of Windows is good, or it takes 3 tries to get something right. Like you look back at that Windows 8 era that was so bad, and you know, like you can read Sinofsky's book, which is fantastic. So much background about what happened in that era and previous eras. I love that book. But you know, like he talks about like they never gave us a chance to iterate on that to get it right. It's like, but that was 2012 but throughout the 2010s and 2025, you are now competing in a space where other companies are getting it right on the first try. Right. SteamOS gets it right on the first try. iOS and Android get things right on the first try. You ship a version of Windows that's bad, you can't say we'll get it right on the next version because now people are going to switch to Linux or Mac OS.
Right.
Probably not Chrome OS because no one wants Chromebooks.
Well, okay, so let's use that as a bit of a segue then, because Google has confirmed, right? They've been talking about this for like, it feels like almost a year. I think they confirmed it in the back half of 2025, but it feels like we've been talking about this forever. That Chrome OS is essentially being replaced by Android for desktop.
I don't know too much about that.
So, I mean, there's not much to know because
Google hasn't done much besides come out and say that this transition is going to happen, that they see Android as the future of larger screen computing, and it's sort of, I mean, they use their corporate way of talking about how this transition is going to happen, but like it's going to happen. And while I don't think it's like an awful idea. In fact, I actually think, especially if they launched it last year, like it's like kind of perfect timing for like a third or fourth, I guess, operating system to try to come in and disrupt the market in a way that Chrome OS did for a bit, but is not really, I don't feel like Chrome OS is really built for our modern way of computing.
I might be ignorant here, but yeah, Chrome OS runs Android apps, so
it does.
What's the difference?
Well, that's the problem, right? Is that like we are seemingly, the rumor is like we're like 2 years away still from this launching, and the leaks we've seen look exactly like Chrome OS, like except now it is just Android, and so it's still going to run Android apps. And it's like, man, if you guys had this like ready to go this year, 2020, like IO, right, in May, if you got up on stage, you were like, we are launching Android for desktops, and then you start bringing, you could nail it if you, and you said this earlier, the app support. We were talking about we were talking about Windows Phone and how it never had the app support. That is the thing that is going to not allow Android for desktops to work, in my opinion, is that if they got up on stage and they were like, we're ready to go, we're rolling out hardware next month, but you can install it on a Chromebook right now. Here's whoever from Adobe. Here's whoever from, I'm trying to think. I guess Valve, like bring Valve up on stage, right? Like have stuff for creators, for gamers, nail all the basics and have at least like some apps like exactly. And be like, that is what is making this different from Chrome OS, is that now we don't just have Android apps. We also are like, you're running Photoshop, you're running Premiere, you're running Steam. I just don't think like, even if they do that, if they do it 2 years from now, I think the window will be closed. There is clearly a window there. And if anything, to kind of bring this full circle, I see that I see like they needed to beat the MacBook Neo to market, because that's where Android for desktop is going to shine, is that like mid-range $600 space that like has mostly, up until now has mostly been either you're buying Windows laptops on sale, as we talked about. If there isn't anything on sale and you're buying like a MSRP $600 Windows laptop, you're sacrificing a lot, and it's easy to jump over to the $600 Chromebook and be like, well, this is significantly more powerful, even though it can't do as much, or like it's got a nicer screen, blah, blah, blah. That's like where Chrome OS is right now, but it's so tricky to recommend a Chromebook to anybody anymore.
I do like the new MediaTek ones, by the way.
There are lots of, it's not the hardware. Like the hardware is totally fine. It really is just that it's like you buy one and you're like, unless you were really just web browsing, you're going to run into it, even more so than the MacBook Neo. You're going to run into just things where you're like, I can't.
Well, going into 2020, it was Chrome OS was seen as this Windows disruptor because that was all anybody needed or whatever. And then, things changed when people had to have home offices. Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's well, and that's what makes it so hard to try to plan out these transitions or these product launches so far ahead of time, is that you don't know when you're going to have that space to like, you don't know when you're going to have time to make your move. And I do feel a little bit like Google's time is now, and it might already be done. And so if we are looking at 2 years from now, like if you're giving Microsoft 24 months to fix their reputation with Windows users, like what are you doing?
They will
like,
too, by the way.
And I do think I think if you're telling me that they're taking Microslop seriously, which they should, because I see it all the time too. I hear about it on podcasts, for God's sake.
This is also it's like a time-honored tradition at Microsoft at this point that every other version of Windows is bad and every other version of Windows is good. And that's just how it is. And it's like, we had Vista and we had Windows 8, and it's like, but you wouldn't have gotten Windows 7 without Windows Vista, and you wouldn't have gotten Windows 10 without Windows 8. And so, this cycle will turn over, and you're right. It's easier to capitalize on Microsoft's failures on this part of the cycle.
Let me ask you this, and then maybe we can wrap up. One final question. If you had to pick one thing for Microsoft to do today to fix their reputation that isn't allowing the taskbar to move around the screen, what would you suggest they do?
I would say to start using competitor products. Like that's one of those things that I always wonder whenever I see something that's just bad and you use something and you're like, these people are living in their own bubble. They do not understand this market that they're building for. And I'm not saying that Microsoft is that, but sometimes you use something and it's just like, they should use a Mac on Fridays.
Right.
Like just kind of see what they're missing.
Well, dude, I mean, that's, I try to use, I think I have a device running like every major operating system, mobile and desktop in my house, because like, I do think that I'm better at writing about Android if I know if I have a fairly deep knowledge of iOS, because I know when Android is taking a feature from iOS. I know when iOS is taking a feature from Android. I know what the two platforms are doing better than the other. And I know that they're kind of convalescing into a murky middle ground where they're kind of the same platform. Yeah.
There are things also, how much do you know about Notepad? Do you use Notepad?
I do use Notepad. I have a Notepad document open with questions and topics for you right now. Notepad
is supposed to be the most basic of basic programs, right?
Yeah, they keep adding stuff to it.
And they right in like the last 2 years or something, they started adding things to it. People that use Notepad don't want that. This is supposed to be a basic text editor that you could build yourself in Visual Basic 6 if you wanted to.
Right.
And people love it for that. You can copy and paste from it and there's no formatting. It is just a text document. So adding Microsoft account sign in and Copilot and even tabs. Tabs are great for everybody.
I like the tabs, I will say, because I use Notepad as like my sticky note, and I do have like 10 tabs open in Notepad right now. That and dark mode are the two.
It's fair, but it's the pure nature of Notepad is just like nothing but text and save and open and copy and paste.
I ignore everything else that this app, like I do not touch the formatting options they added, because why would I, like, I really do just use this app to open, to make documents that say things such as Rich Woods, content director at XDA Developers, MakeUseOf, and HowToGeek, so that I don't forget to read it at the intro.
I'll tell you.
Yeah.
I have the one thing. It's sign in. They need to fix sign in.
Yeah.
They desperately need to fix sign in. So when I set up a new computer and I sign into that computer with my Microsoft account, I still, everywhere I go, I'm still signing into my Microsoft account again. Sometimes it asks me for a password again. Sometimes it doesn't. It's just, when you use Google services, you sign in once and you're done.
Yeah.
Everything is seamless. It's like and Microsoft still has these loading screens like signing you in. You never get that with Google services at all. It's just, and that's why you're using Google Docs instead of Office web apps. No one's using Office web apps.
I'm not using Office web apps because Docs is right there. It's like I have Chrome open. Yeah. I'm already signed in. And if I need to go to a different Docs account, that's 2 clicks. I'm already signed into that account too, and God, the amount of times my computer upgrades and it's like, by the way, we're still continuing your setup process. Do you want to do this now? And I'm like, I don't want to set up whatever you are at. Like, you were just asking me to set up like OneDrive. Like, that's what you want me to set up. And I don't want to do that. I
love OneDrive. I hate OneDrive files, known files backup. That is awful. Especially if you set up many PCs like I do. Known folders backup. That's where it automatically backs up your desktop, documents, and photos. Either photos or downloads. I don't remember. But it's so bad. Every time I set up a new PC, any shortcut that was made on my old PC just shows up. So there's a bunch of dead shortcuts on the screen when I set up a new PC. And I go and I turn it off, and they keep adding steps to turn it off.
Yeah.
It used to be in the out of box experience. You could just choose not to have this. And then they just took that away.
Well, yeah. And I mean, this is, I mean, you're talking about like, please go use other people's products. It's like also just understand that like Microsoft, you failed at building an ecosystem. You did. Like, it sucks, but you need to, and they do this, you know, they have a lot of Android integration, and they are continuing to build on that. And I think it's the smartest thing they could do. But
I don't even agree. I don't like
really?
it at all. I love Google Messages on the web.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't use. Have you seen some of the cross or the app resume stuff they're doing? I think that stuff's really smart if they can continue to build that out, where you are essentially, you have an app on your Android phone, and you can just like, very similar to continuity on the Mac. You can if you have like Spotify has support for it, for example, you can like resume your Spotify application like where you were on. Spotify's a weird pick for them because Spotify sort of already does that, but like it's a little bit more immediate. It's a little bit more like exactly what you were doing. OneDrive, all the OneDrive apps support it now, and I think they might be adding they're adding WhatsApp, I think is in the works as well. So like stuff like that I think would be smart. I agree with you. They don't need to build like a messages app that supports Google Messages, because that's already in the cloud.
Well, I guess that was some of the first stuff that they started doing, right?
Yeah,
which was texting. That's always the big thing, texting from your computer.
Yeah.
And I wish we could do that. I wish Apple would make a web app. I'm actually kind of surprised they haven't. The more they move to cross-platform stuff and services and web apps for music and TV, and
they have you can get to some of your iCloud stuff, like if you have notes, you can get to that in the browser, and they've redesigned that. It's a lot more intuitive now than it used to be. It used to be really like bare bones. But yeah, I mean, if you're trying to get to, you know, if you're trying to text from a Windows machine from an iPhone, like good luck. You have to set up your own. There are ways to do it, but it's annoying and tricky. Yeah. Okay, Rich, that's a good place. I mean, I feel like we could talk for another hour, and I'll have to have you back on at some point. But where can people find you and the work you are doing?
Well, you can find me at the Rich Woods on all social platforms, and of course, the work I'm doing is on most of when I write, it's on XDA.
Yeah, that's your baby.
I've written
if we're being honest,
yeah,
like
it is.
That's your
I'm content director.
Yeah,
I'm content director now. I mean, for those that don't know, I mean, 8 months ago I was editor in chief of XDA, where I've been since 2021.
Yeah, and you guided their relaunch to the PC market. Like that was which you're crushing it, man. Like it's one of the go-to places in my opinion for PC coverage. So you're killing it. Go follow Rich. Rich, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And that'll do it for this week's Sideload. Thanks again to Rich Woods for joining me to debate all sorts of computing things. I love getting a chance to pick Rich's brain, but he is a very busy person, as his job title implies. Find him anywhere you can on the web and give him a follow, and hopefully we will get him back on the show sometime down the road when he is once again free. As always, you can rate, review, and find us on the podcast platform of your choice. You can subscribe to 9 to 5 Google on YouTube if you haven't. That's where you'll find full video versions of this podcast. And share the Sideload with a friend if you enjoyed it. As always, you can reach me at will@9to5mac.com or your pick of various Twitter-esque social networks. Feedback is always welcome, as are guest suggestions. Next week, Allison Johnson of The Verge joins the show to talk about Samsung's already defunct Galaxy Z trifold. She has had a very unique experience with that phone, so I'm excited to pick her brain on that. And then to dive into the first 3 months of 2026 from a smartphone perspective. I love Allison's writing and reviews, and I'm very excited to get a chance to talk to her for a full hour about smartphones and Android and all this stuff. But that's next week. Until then, thank you very much for listening, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye.